Oh, hey, what's up? This is Nariba Shepherd,
And this is Justin Arnett Graham.
and this
Is Terms of Service.
Oh,
come on.
That was
Come on.
great.
That
was great.
That felt lovely.
Shout out to us for getting it together this time.
I mean, we're always trying because we are committed to try.
Yes.
We're committed to the try,
And it's a journey,
not a destination.
not a destination.
Oh, certainly. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling ripe with new beginnings.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I know that's because Pisces season is upon us.
Oh,
And they're wish-washy bitches, but I love them. They're like the end of the zodiac,
okay.
and I'm the beginning. So as an Aries, I'm just like a horrible child throwing a tantrum.
Okay.
And Pisces are like the end of it, so they're like the mature adults that have like figured it out.
Okay.
We work really well together, but people don't like Pisces. I hope neither of you are Pisces, but you're allowed to be. It's
Right. And well, I'm feeling great.
Yes.
Also, because we get to do this again and we have more friends.
More friends. Hi, friends.
Hi.
What's up?
What's going on, friends?
If you want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, Grocery Run Club is here.
Hi,
Hi.
we are here.
Yes.
GRC in the house.
GRC. Yes, I like that. Okay.
And if you want to tell people your names
I'm
right
Lucy.
quick.
My name is Lucy Angel.
And my name is Jorge Salariaga. We're both from Chicago.
Yes.
Born and raised.
Ah.
We like to make sure we point that out 10 times.
It is a
In every
Chicago way, I've heard, as not a Chicago native. I like how intensely great people are about letting you know they're from Chicago. Because
Bitch, I'm from Chicago.
Exactly. The East Coast, it's like very, especially the Northeast Coast, it's very like, well, I'm from Massachusetts. And I'm like,
They can keep all
Massels.
that. They can keep it. Okay.
I went to college out in Massachusetts.
Oh, never mind. They don't
where?
have to keep all of it.
UMass Boston.
I'm glad he came back.
Okay, yeah.
So you didn't go to the
Dorchester.
Zoomass. That's
Nah,
Amherst.
that's Amherst.
Yes. Yes.
I had a roommate in New York who went to UMass Amherst, and that's why I said keep it.
Yep, big party school. Never made it out there.
It's okay. You're not missing anything.
I know.
did
I haven't
it
been
a time or
back.
two. Every January I usually go home to see my nephew for his birthday. He turned 17 this year and I cried. But Boston is like one of the first places I lived when I moved to the States. So it has like a soft spot, but the soft spot is like covered with racism.
That's what I was going to say. Anytime I've been in Boston, I'm like, wow, everyone here is really, really racist.
Yeah.
And they don't know it.
Right.
They don't know it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Sorry,
I'm just going to
Boston.
leave it at that.
I know. Sorry, Boston.
I will stay right here. I
That
will
might be the
stay put in
slogan for
Chicago.
Boston. Sorry, Boston.
Yeah, you know, I'm just like, good for y'all.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, I reiterate, we are from Chicago.
Yes. And so I just have to do it because,
Okay.
you know, we got to get started this way. What are your signs?
Ooh,
We're Zodiac people, I would
yes,
say.
I love reading my co-star.
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini.
And I'm,
Oh.
Yes.
I'm a Libra.
Oh.
I understand y'all. I've learned so much about Libras in the last like 2 years.
Tell us.
Libras are the most indecisively decisive people. Like if they already know the things that they're about, those decisions are easy to make. Everything
Super
else
easy.
is like a really thoughtful self-reflection that is usually shared with others through rambling.
Yep.
Yes.
And you're not looking for them to help you.
Yes.
But you're like, I know where I'm going. Just let me get there. And I
Yeah.
get it.
that is to a
I
T.
like to explain some things when I really don't need to.
And that's perfectly acceptable because I've learned a lot from my roommate who is a Libra telling me things all the time. I'm like, I get it.
For me, I think I literally like the signs of the zodiac signs, right? So like the scale is like, that's me to a T. Like if I'm not feeling it, the scale's like hella imbalanced. But if I'm
Very
feeling
extreme.
it, that's like where I want to be, is
Exactly.
that balanced like version of myself. So I'm a Libra to a T for
Yes.
sure.
And you're a first Libra.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've definitely had a Gemini before. And I fucks with
certainly.
Geminis. They get a horrible rap.
We really do.
But wait, what day is your birthday?
May 29th.
What?
Okay. You're like
My
still-
moons are Taurus. I'm like a rising sign. I think that's my rising, and my moon is a Taurus. So some of my qualities are of a Taurus, but I do identify with the Gemini.
I mean, I am literally dating someone who is a Gemini Taurus cusp. So you're in the wheelhouse of what I understand. But I would say all May Geminis are truly the leaders of like the grounded part of the Gemini. And when you get into June, it's closer to the Cancer
This is
aspect
fascinating.
of it.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit more like emotional, I don't want to say instability, but like one of the twins has taken over.
That makes
You
sense.
know? And you're like forced to be grounded because you're swaddled by earth signs.
You're a couple days away from June.
I know.
You know?
I am very much at the cusp.
The closer you get to it, the more it's like I can feel my feelings on the inside and the outside.
Yes.
Yes.
Lately, I've definitely been feeling my feelings like all the way there. And I don't know if it's because the new moon is coming or what's going on.
It's
but
the new moon Aquarius season and the retrograde. And like what is
And
it? What's happening
and
with
as a
Scorpio?
proud Aquarius, I'm
You're
a
good
proud
with it.
Aquarius.
Yeah,
That's all I have to say.
yeah. And
what are the main categories or like traits of an Aquarius? I don't know if I know many Aquarius.
Nariba, because she helps me find out exactly what
She's
it
the
is that
expert.
I make
So, like,
for sure. 'Cause I'm like, okay.
Capricorns are very like about their like cash and about structure and having everything together. And Aquarius comes right after that, and they're more about like the more artistically developed my life could be, the happier I'll be. And I don't necessarily care if you think that that's crazy. I'm going to do it anyway. The motivation
Facts.
for the motivation
Yes.
for the Aquarius is like that's why we have creative endeavors. You know, like they're out here just doing it no matter what anyone says.
I love that.
and that's
what's up.
like
I love Aquarius.
Oh,
and I'm
thank
just out
you.
here like burning shit down to the ground, and Max is like putting it out with water. You know, so we're out here just
We're out here.
trying,
We're out here.
and so are y'all.
Yeah, speaking about out here, let's talk about Grocery Run Club. Let's get
Yes.
into it.
Tell them Jorge.
Yeah, how'd you get started? What's the
What is it?
We'll tell you what it
What is it?
Yeah.
What is GRC? GRC is our baby. GRC is a idea that we had during COVID 2020. The word that we shall never say again.
Oh, certainly.
So it's a community initiative. We partner with organizations throughout the city of Chicago, and we help them with fresh produce and everyday necessities. So we supply fresh produce, everyday necessities to those organizations, and then they distribute out to underserved neighborhoods and underserved community members throughout the south and west sides, mostly of Chicago. Yeah, I mean that's it.
That's our
what we're doing.
one-liner.
Yeah.
Everything else is deep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's a pretty solid elevator pitch. You know? Yeah. I think that's
We wanted
great.
to keep it simple, just like, what are we really doing? But I think when we started this in July, we felt like it was very clear, like, what needed to happen. We were, like, sitting at our houses, feeling like we couldn't leave our homes because it was really scary out there. And then we were like, no, we have to go out there and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you get consumed by the news and what's going on the news, and you're like, is that real? Is that what's happening in my community? So when we started volunteering, we just started to realize that there was so much need. Like, there was more need than you could even grasp of what was being shown on TV. And it was it just brought us to this point where we're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Need that's been there before, need that's going to be there
Yeah.
after, but definitely amplified.
Yeah.
Especially when we were in like the middle of quarantine, then we felt comfortable enough to go back to like to a couple volunteer spots that we were volunteering at beforehand. And yeah, we saw it like firsthand, right? Like we saw it firsthand how these systems and networks that are supposedly in place to help support underserved communities were actually totally broken.
Yep.
Lack of communication,
Yeah.
not actually doing the appropriate things that they're set out to do. Point being, like when we were out in North Lawndale, seeing like these USDA boxes not reaching the community members, and then the USDA telling the organizations like, "Hey, I think we're good here. We'll see y'all later." And it was literally it was like end
Like
of June,
middle,
July.
right.
Like it was the middle of July, middle of the height of pandemic back then.
Yeah.
But it was just like heartbreaking and eye-opening to an extent of understanding like, wait, if this isn't actually impacting our community members, our neighbors in a positive way, then what is?
Right.
Which is like 90% of the issue is like, if people don't think it matters to them because it doesn't affect them directly, then it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like, I think a lot of what I'm interested in hearing about is like how you have tricked people into like doing the right thing.
We need to trick more people still, but
Well, here we are.
want people to care.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it right here today. You're gonna use your words and you're gonna tell them what they should be doing.
We'll start by telling you how we tricked our friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were like, all right, what are we going to do to help? And we saw this community garden in North Lawndale, exactly what Jorge just mentioned. Like they were doing a USDA box distribution. The USDA like 2 days before was like, we're done. Like you guys are good. And we were there like, we have to do something. We have to get groceries now for the 50 families that come. We're like, okay, we can probably throw down some money, but let's ask our friends. So we asked our friends like, hey, would you guys give us $5? Send it to us on Venmo. We're going to go on a grocery run for this organization.
Yeah.
And they sent us, we asked 20 friends. They sent us a total of $300, so which was 3 times what we thought we were going to get. And we were like, okay, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
So we went on our first grocery run, and then we were like, what do we have to do to formalize this and maybe have more people send us $5 on Venmo or on PayPal or on Chase? And so that was really the basis of Grocery Run Club.
We're like, how can we package this idea, market it? Because let's be real, everything needs to be marketed nowadays, right?
Yep,
Like,
for sure.
I've been learning about that on the podcast.
Yeah, a whole package, a whole platform, a whole
Got to be a vibe.
Shebang. Yeah.
true vibe.
People want
You
to
gotta
vibe.
razzle dazzle them.
I think that quickly, I think that speaks to the point of like understanding how you can work within the system, right? Like, yeah, let's burn some stuff down, but let's burn some stuff down while we're actually working towards like some really
Absolutely.
positive impact.
That's
Not
what we're
like,
doing.
yeah, right? Like, not the one or the other.
You could do them at the same time.
You could do it at the same time. So that's where we're at. We're like, all right, cool. Like, let's market this. Let's package this. Let's like make this look super dope. If we were on the other end, let's make it look like something that we would be attracted to, because it'll most likely resonate with the user, with the consumer, with the community member, and see where it goes, and maybe burn some shit down while we do it. But yeah, that's where GRC, Grocery Run Club, came from, and we did that. We did that in like 2 or 3 weeks after we started like these 2 grocery runs that we were able to do because of our friends.
Yeah, but definitely shout out to our designer, Layla Register, because she really we gave her like a lot of direction of like, this is what we want it to look like. We don't want it to look like a nonprofit. We don't want it to look like this is a charity thing that, you have to give us your money and that's it. Like we want it to feel very community oriented. We want it to feel like, it's not this gloomy place where you're finding out all these sad stories about community members, because that's also not part of what we want to do. We want to highlight the joyous moments that Black and brown people go through, because it's not all sad. And how can we create that community online, because we can't gather, and still have people care in a variety of different ways. And so the first month that we launched, I think all of our DMs and emails were like, hey, I found out about you and your branding is so cute. Your website is so cute. And so we knew that people were reaching us and sharing our platform because they thought it was cute, which is so bizarre to think about, that that's like the route that you need to take to tell people to please help, help.
I was gonna say, like, you also did it in a way that made it like, it comes off as not charity to people, which is a big thing in Black and brown communities, is like we've been raised to not take handouts.
Right.
And I think that it's been harmful in our like overall development, because I learned personally so much in this pandemic about like just asking for help and like receiving help, and knowing that it doesn't mean that you're incapable.
Exactly.
100%.
And I think you guys are doing a really good job of
Thank you.
I
think-
second that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We would not be able to do it without, like, you know, the community, our network, our support, our family. Shout out to our ancestors for paving the way.
Fuck yeah.
Of
ancestors.
course. Yes.
But yes, to that point, like, that's exactly it. And I think, like, to speak on charity quickly as well, it's trying to, and I think what I really enjoy the idea of tricking, like we're tricking people or something. Like, yes, not necessarily tricking. I understand where that's coming from. Maybe it's unlearning as well as tricking, or something of that sort of sense, because of this aspect of what charity actually is. Charity is the idea of like me giving to someone that is in need, but like it still allows me to be like better than them because I'm giving to them. Like, no, let's rework that idea. Let's trick someone into thinking that they're not giving charity, they're just a part of this like larger collective that might be called Grocery Run Club or something, right? Like that, right? So it's kind of like we thought about that. We thought about how we could reintroduce this. How can we start this whole thing, but with some sort of intentionality behind it, versus it being some sort of like charity work that has a negative, connotation to it.
I mean, I get it. I went to school originally for the social works. And when I graduated, I realized that I can't recognize a single load of laundry, so I shouldn't like be in charge of someone's life. So I started chopping vegetables for a living. And one of the first social work classes I ever took was like the original form of social work / they were using the language charity as well, was feeding each other. And it's like a weird full circle thing where one of my first jobs when I got to Chicago was sous chefing for a like woman, Stephanie Goldfarb, love you, who did like these charity dinners to raise money for her job, which was like working for a charity. And she realized that she was making like more money than was necessary, and just like continued doing it for 2 years. And to me, that was like the perfect intersectionality. But what y'all are doing is like bringing that intersectionality into relearning how to like, or like unlearning charity and relearning community work.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly it. Yep.
We want you to feel like you're a part of a larger community that understands your neighbor.
Yeah.
And not feel like, to Jorge's point, we always say it's like about us. It's not us versus them. We hate when people talk about community members as if though they're othered, because that's such a major problem. And to your other point about kind of like people and community members even getting to that point of feeling comfortable to ask for help, like dignity is a huge word that we use, and people should experience this with dignity. And I feel like even a lot of the resources that are out there, they kind of have a weird stamp around them that make you feel othered if you're receiving the help, or label you in a certain way. So we think about that very intentionally, even when we're distributing things to community members. Like, we want your bag to look like you went maybe shopping and it has a cute little logo on it, not like it has a huge food pantry thing on the side.
This makes me just so happy. And there is a spot in the South Loop that shall not be named. However, I do believe this story will provide enough context for, it will naturally identify itself. So I'm sick of the term pandemic, because that's exactly what we're in. But you know, I've been referring to it as like a ponderosa, you know,
Panoramic.
a panoramic, a patriotics, like, you know, anything that I can to just, you know, bring a little bit of joy in a, you know, a little dimmer situation.
She dark. Times are dark.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
okay.
you know, dark times, yes. But there was this establishment that is wildly acclaimed, and they wanted to help the community, the hospitality community specifically. So they leaned on their purveyors to donate a whole bunch of product, and basically you would show up there and you could fill up one bag of whatever you need. And in principle, it was great. However, I went numerous times so I could grab things for someone else that could not stomach being seen waiting in a long line in what would feel like a soup kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
And that broke my heart. But then in addition to that, I would sign up to get like, you know, donated boxes, and they weren't for me. They were for friends or friends of friends in the industry that don't feel like they can retain their dignity for asking for help. And that is a larger conversation, and most certainly a larger issue.
Right.
Because in addition to all of that, I think when we talk about, like, you know, tricking people and supporting, it's repositioning the conversation to where you don't necessarily have to assist when people are without. You also want to ensure that people feel like they're provided for and that they matter. And that is where it gets just it's wild.
So this is actually, and if y'all been listening, you know I don't like to pop in too much, but this is a really interesting thread of a concept, because there's a theory of charity in Judaism. A famous rabbi named Maimonides characterized the levels of charity, and the lowest is when both parties, the giver and the receiver, don't want it.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow.
And then it goes on and on. But the highest level isn't giving someone somebody. It's teaching somebody how to be self-reliant.
Yes.
The wherewithal to become self-supporting.
For
So
sure.
when y'all are
Yep.
talking about changing the way we approach charity, and y'all are talking about giving things without, like, putting the burden on the receiver, it brings me back to the pyramid.
You're getting ahead of where we're going. I love that.
That's-
I
no,
love that
that's-
so much, because
Sorry.
that's no. I'm so happy you brought that up, because I think, like, you know, the first couple of months of this work, when we launched in July, we're in month 7, and everything has just happened so fast, and everything that we've done has been, you know, this immediate rapid response. Like, people need something, we got to run. Like, this organization reached out, we got to get them on our list, and we got to keep doing that. But to that point, we've just been thinking about, like, what are the next layers of this work, so that we're not just jumping to things when people need them, and we can start getting ahead of what people's potential needs are. And so in those ways, like, those are some of the community development projects that we're going to be working on over this next year, and our educational programs that we're going to work on this next year, because we want to prepare people to not be in these scenarios where, you know, in some cases, like, there are no other options for people to imagine what their life can be and what they can have. And so we're not going to solve this issue by ourselves, but we want to be the vessel to get people to care about it enough to invest their time, money, energy, product, whatever it is that you want to contribute.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say that you guys are very much already doing that, like, so well. Because, like, I just went through the website really quick, and when I started, like, scrolling through the people that are, like, supporting y'all through this. I'm like, how you do this?
Amazing.
How you do this?
Amazing. And I just want to, like, really quick, a little, like, just air cheers.
Yes.
With the
like,
rhubarb
amazing.
sody.
Yeah,
It's so good.
because this
Very
rhubarb soda
delicious.
is ridiculous.
Because this tastes like
It's
the
the
same
allspice
sweet
for me.
dreams
It's the
that's
allspice
going.
for me.
Yeah, the rhubarb
Yeah.
and the sweet dreams, and
Yeah.
like this conversation is really this. It's all coming together, and I just am very excited to listen to y'all talk for the next like however many more minutes because it's something. There's something really refreshing about seeing the ideas that people have had for so long actually being done and it being done in an equitable way,
Yeah.
which is like really fucked up to think about because as a permanent member of the Pacific Rim that we're in right now, it's just like we've learned that people don't do the things that they say they're doing
Yeah.
so frequently, especially in the last like 4 years.
Well, because it feels hopeless
Yes.
at certain points. And unfortunately, while also speaking fortunately, that something so decimating happened because it has really, shined a light on this facade
Right.
that, I mean, it's
But like,
curtain culture,
Yeah.
like you have mentioned in the past, and it's like, there are solutions to these problems, but now people want to listen to these solutions because
Exactly.
they're all getting worried, they're getting called out, they're experiencing consequences of using a GoFundMe campaign to pay corporate staff instead
Yeah.
of those that need it most. But I'm not going to go down that tangent because then
but like, you're
but-
like working on an epidemic in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like,
An epidemic
Yeah.
that's been here before.
That's what I'm-
It's been it's like we said before. It's like it's been here. It's gonna be here. We were like weirdly lucky that 2020 happened because I hope that everyone kind of pumped the brakes and reflected.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough and privileged enough to pump the brakes, reflect, and then this is how GRC was born, right? So now we're in the situation of what does this look like? What does intentional work with accountability? Because with like we show our receipts. If someone wants to see the receipts, we have them. Like we can show y'all everything like it should be. And at the same time, we're also trying to instill this idea that this should be just like everyday life.
Yeah.
This should
Yeah.
just be a part of life,
Yeah.
right? This isn't charity. This isn't like, oh, it's the holidays, let me try and do something
Right.
good.
Right.
This is like, yo, it's Wednesday
I'll round
in
up to the next
middle
dollar
of
to try and
Here's
April.
my
help somebody
penny.
else. Yeah, it's like here.
Exactly.
here you
It's
go.
Wednesday in April, and like, let me go do something good because I can. Like,
Yes.
that's what it's all about. I
Yeah.
think to your point about like the tricking and like how did we do that? I think that was that exact idea of like how do we make this an everyday thing was at the basis of that answer, and we thought about this like subscription based idea of like supporting something, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's what the platform is at GRC. Like, you can sign up for a monthly subscription. You donate money to GRC. We manage it and distribute it out to the appropriate organizations and support the community members. But it's in that like Hulu, Netflix, Apple Music kind of idea.
Yeah, we want you to be the subscription that like you don't check every month. Like whatever that number is for you, whether it's $10, whether it's $100, whatever it is, we want you to set it and forget about it. And when you look at it on your, bank statement and you're like, oh, what is that charge? You know that it went somewhere good. Like we don't do that with Apple. We don't do that with Hulu. We
no.
pay.
And they're still taking my goddamn money.
Right.
Yeah.
They really are.
They probably took it right now. Right now.
I
just,
mean- Probably.
So I love that we're talking about, the positives of everything that's going on, but there is the reality of challenges that you have experienced and, these community and cultural obstacles. Would you like to touch upon some of that as well?
I was thinking about that. I can go first.
Go for it.
Let's give me
I'm
a-
like, where to start?
I think the hardships are I think I truly believe that the majority of people can align with this idea. The hardships, and I'm going to get slightly personal. The hardships for us, like day in, day out, is seeing the inequities, and at least for me, understanding that my family was one decision away from being on that side of inequities, right? I've had a very privileged life. My mom was on link cards. My mom had 3 jobs when I was little. Like I was never rich. Like I had a very hard life, but I had a very privileged life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing that and like internalizing that and understanding that weighs heavy. And I don't know if enough people are exposed to that.
Yeah.
To really understand, like, yo, this could still be you. This could still be me,
yeah,
right?
You could be one paycheck away from that reality.
Y'all are
Exactly.
talking about like my worst nightmare on hallucinogenics. That's like every time I've done a little bit too many hallucinogenics a long time ago, I would think about this, like how far away from homelessness I can be.
Oof.
And it's stressful. And
How close?
Yeah.
How close, yeah.
And it's like people don't realize that like all of these things that are happening around you could be you.
1000%. We
Yeah.
talk about that all the time.
Real. That's
Yeah.
like a real ass thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like enough, and it's not like I'm trying to like center myself or center our work or anything like that. I think it just, for me, like that was such a big learning experience of like, damn, like I'd be in the car crying sometimes, being like, I like remember where this could have been, this other thing, and like because of my mom, like it wasn't like, wow, I never had an opportunity to really think about that like that. And it's more about trying to explain this to people that are listening, like take some time and like kind of, sit with that.
Yeah.
That motivates you to like, all right, let me try and like do something else, because like, and I think we'll touch on other aspects of like the hardships of the work, but like I'm not trying to be out here like, like we already know what the hardships are, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's more that like internal learning that has really impacted me in a very like, deep, good, positive way that makes me want to keep on going.
And I think it's just hard to look at yourself in the mirror and realize how, for me, I'll speak for myself, like how long I went without doing anything.
Oh, yeah.
Me as a person, I'm first generation Mexican American. Like my parents are immigrants. Like me being one step away, also thinking about the struggles that my parents went through to give my siblings and I the life that we have. We're so much closer to the folks that we serve than wealthiness, than like any other identity. And so myself growing up, understanding inequities, seeing them, but then gravitating away from them because I was good, and then having to revert back and be like, wow, you haven't done anything. Like, what are you going to do now?
Yep.
And that weighs heavy. And I think that a lot of people would much rather run away from it and just live their happy life and pretend the pandemic's not doing anything to them, and that life before was
Because
perfect.
they're over it.
And
They're
yeah,
over
because
it.
they're
Exactly.
over it, and
Yeah.
they can be over it. And
It's
that's
a
such a
privilege to be
privilege.
able to
yes,
be
to
over
like
it.
be
It's a
over it.
luxury. Like, what
luxury.
do you mean you're over it? How can?
It's
Congrats
insane.
to you, I guess. What?
Yeah.
It is insane. And it's so heavy to like be in communities and understand that like this is their everyday life, and you get the stories and you are just heartbroken all the time. And I think that that's something that we're very careful about how we share those stories through Grocery Run Club, because that's, again, like going back to dignity, going back to like, that's not necessarily our story to tell. Like we could share a million sad stories to maybe try and get you to bump up the amount of funds that you give us so we can help more people. Like that's not what that's not our mission. That's not where we're headed with that. But I think that when people start to get involved with us and even like have more hands-on interaction of like delivering food to a community member in North Lawndale and are literally in the neighborhood, like for some people it's the first time that they've been in North Lawndale, that they've been in the Austin neighborhood, where they've literally driven 15 minutes in one direction from where they normally are, and they're like, holy shit. Like
Right, and then there are so much, but there are many times to where I have been told by people that I have known for years, to where it's just like, oh, I've never been south of Roosevelt. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean?
But how did you do it though?
Yeah,
I know, that's crazy.
you know, and it's just like, oh, it's like, yeah, I don't really pay attention to anything that goes on over there. I'm just like, what do you like?
Yeah.
What do you?
What
do
a
you
luxury
mean?
for you to be able to turn a blind eye. First off,
Right. And then also contribute some sort of unnecessary commentary about, you know, this part of the city is dangerous. This part of the city, it's just like, well, maybe, you know, this, that, and the third. It's just like, you can't even tell me on a grid where the shit
Where,
Right,
that part, where the
right.
part of the city is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, what does this mean? And therefore you are part of the problem
Yep.
and less of the solution. And all of that shit contributes to this divide. And when you were speaking, Lucy, I just had like this random ass flashback when I was a younger lad than I am now, when those commercials would come on where it's like $1 a day or something like that, and it shows, you know,
the sad
the
person,
sad
the sad
child.
Yo,
I
yeah.
was
It's
like,
like, I mean, that
Angel.
shit is like traumatic as hell. And
And that's how people understand what that is, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, because
Yeah.
that's not what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
That's not what it's supposed to be,
Right.
Which is working towards.
yeah, and therefore it has done more damage than good. I mean, financially,
maybe,
maybe,
yeah,
but culturally,
Yeah.
Listen,
like, what?
as someone from a third world country,
Yeah.
when I think about all of the like the ways that I've seen the structure of like inequity in this country, it blows my mind because like in Trinidad, homelessness was like a thing that seemed to be everywhere, but it looked a certain type of way. And here in America, because of like how much there is here, homelessness looks like a bunch of different things.
Speak on
Yeah.
that.
It's like a spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that in America, Americans get to pick and choose what charity looks like to them.
Yes.
But in third
Yeah.
world countries, that's not a conversation, because it's like whatever resources are there, they, for the most part, try to like put them out as soon as possible. And it might not look the same way as it does here, but you can see like the change happening gradually over time. I feel like in the US, I haven't seen sustainable change, especially when it comes to like how food is distributed in this country.
Yep.
And I'm really interested in seeing like how this program and programs like it change the sustainability of like what people look at as food, because that's a large part of like the challenge, I would believe, is like getting people to use fresher items because they're not as expensive as all of the like processed things that we are used to being handed in certain communities.
I mean, there's so many layers to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I ramble.
No, it's amazing. But I think like the biggest hurdle is access, one. So
Yeah.
like the majority of the community members that are buying, you know, these highly processed items, it's not because they want to, it's because that's the only thing that they have access to. We always talk about like, you know, the statistics of grocery stores in different parts of the city. Like the one that really sticks out to us is in Lincoln Park, there's 60,000 residents, but there's 10 grocery stores.
Yeah.
Full service. In the Austin neighborhood, there's
90,000.
90,000 residents and there are 2 grocery stores.
That's fucked up.
Oh my God.
And so when you're
What?
talking about like, yes, of course, like, you know, give people fresh produce. This is something we experienced like very early on. Like give everyone fresh produce. Everyone wants fresh produce. Like
No.
some people don't know how to use it
Exactly.
because
Some
they've
People
never
don't have
had
an access
to
to an oven.
Yeah.
some
access
people
to a
don't have
stovetop.
access to a stove. Like some like those are things that there's so many layers to having people understand why that is the way that it is. And there's so much work that needs to be done to sustainably dismantle that, to dismantle, you know, the ways in which people eat.
Yes.
And
Yeah, and the celebration of a Whole Foods opening
Exactly.
in a particular neighborhood.
right.
And it's just like, oh, well, they care. And it's like, well, let's
You can
really,
keep that.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's a systemic issue on so many levels, because also, you know, from a developer standpoint, you know, you want a certain tenant, you want a certain brand because it means something to them. And on the last episode that we recorded, we spoke a lot about empathy, and being empathetic should not be something that you convince someone to do. Brands should not have to see, you know, an ROI on it. It's people behind everything. You know, you look everywhere, it is people that are coming together to achieve a common goal. Fuck, you look at Apple, right? It's just like Apple's just not existing because it exists. It's a whole ton of people behind that. And it's the same thing when you start trickling it down.
Yeah, you can apply it to other things, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially for food. Like, it shouldn't be, the ROI shouldn't, around food business, there shouldn't be an ROI. Like, you know, there shouldn't be an ROI. It's food. It's food access. Everyone should have food on their
Right.
table.
Like, do you agree that people should be able to have access to food?
Eat.
Then-
Period.
Exactly,
Right.
period.
Like,
I think it's a much larger conversation on like the system and like the business
The food
behind it, and like to
system,
your
right.
point, like the United States and like
Yeah.
why our country, this country, like needs to control certain situations and certain things how they need to, or how they want to, how it's been for a long time. So, I mean, it's a learning experience for us, 100%. But we're happy and you know, we're excited to take it on. I think something that we've learned in like this whole food access situation, it's really a matter, there's just like so many ways to take it on, right? There's so many different aspects to really look at and to challenge yourself to like learn more about and take on, that there's an opportunity for anyone to try and figure something out that will be a part of the solution. We always talk about how there's just not one solution because there's so many
We are
problems,
not- we are
and
not
there's
the
so many
solution.
layers to those problems that but there is an opportunity to be a part of the solution, and that's what we feel like we're in right now.
That's how we feel.
completely.
That we are hoping that this will be part of the like solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when
It
you
feels weird to say that.
Cool, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what he said.
Yeah, and it's because the whole idea here behind terms of service is we don't believe that you will get anywhere if you do not acknowledge what is going on. And with having these conversations, it's not only a way to shed light on just the spectrum of the industry, but to provide education to those within the industry, but also outside of that community as well. Because when you're spending your money, when you're voting with your dollars, go the extra, like click on a website to figure out if it makes sense to support it.
Right.
Because it's all interconnected. And the biggest thing that this Ponderosa has shown me is how closely intertwined we all are with one another.
Yep.
And if you don't get that, and if you decide that you still want to be a piece of shit, then
Which lots of people do.
lots of people do. Which lots of people do.
Consciously
And
make that decision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wake up every day and choose violence. And it's absolutely insane. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is food deserts and the idea of redlining. We're all familiar with redlining.
Oh, we clicked
Yes,
on
we
it
are.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah. Nuriba, would you like to tell those that are listening, what is redlining?
Redlining is this really fucked up thing that happened not that long ago. Like,
Correct.
I'm
It was
just,
not that long ago.
like, not even 100 years ago.
No way.
No.
And it was like lines that the banks sort of set up on maps of certain areas
Boundaries. Yep.
to, you know, say whether or not people were able to get loans based on their proximity to rich people, basically. That's what the fuck
And
it
white
is.
people.
And white people.
White people.
Like, rich white people specifically. And because of those structures that were set up a blink ago, we are still in a situation where you can't get financing to open, like, restaurants
Yeah, you can't
or
get access to
grocery
capital.
stores or
Right.
any sort of capital in that area. And it goes down to, like, their environment, like less trees.
Yep.
So it's like less filtering out of pollution in the air, and like you find a
Right.
lot more illness and disease in redlined areas because it's basically a desert,
Yeah.
a modern desert.
I will say this. I have a friend literally right now looking at opening a vegan grocery store. He and his fiance fell into the vegan lifestyle a couple years ago, and they love it. And they want to share it, and they're super excited about it. But they're not preachy, so I love them. So I appreciate that from them. Anyhow, when we had our last conversation, I was like, yo, how's everything been going? And what are you thinking about doing this? And it's like, well, to be quite honest with you, like, we don't want to do it on the north side. We really want to do it on the south side, but we keep getting a lot of pushback because it's a riskier investment. And I was like,
To who though?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And it just conjured up this fire in me to where I was so angry. And I'm like, you have the money, you have the interest to do this, but you might just do it where they don't need it at all.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah,
it's
what's the
how it
impact, right?
happened. Yeah, it's how they want it to work. It's how it has been set up to work for so long. And like, I feel like, and I'm going to stay on this like vegan example. I used to be like, veganism doesn't make sense to me because X, Y, and Z, it boils down to like dollars. And then I realized
'cause it's
that like
expensive.
half of the shit I grew up eating
It's
is
vegan.
vegan.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And like, I think that
Yeah.
it gets a really weird and bad rap because everything that we have been exposed to is like, you need this amount of protein, this amount X, Y, Z, whatever. And I didn't realize that so many people of color are already vegan and they don't even fucking know it.
Right. Like
Yeah.
their roots are
Yeah.
But because there's a lack of access
Mm-hmm.
to those items, that's where our diet has changed over the years.
Exactly.
Also, lack of access to education to understand that.
Yeah.
Wait, this is how our parents, this is how our grandparents, this is how our ancestors ate. Like, this is how we should be eating, most
Yeah.
likely, right? Like,
yeah.
um,
I'm
yeah,
like, don't be
it's-
mad at a fresh tomato.
No,
Not at
don't.
all. Okay.
Unless it's
No.
in winter and it's being served to you.
Right.
not in season.
A
You
bunch
can
of
eat it,
people
not
have
in
never
season.
had a real tomato. Like a lot of people have never had like
Or
a
like
true
real
tomato.
strawberries.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a little side blip. It's very cute. I worked with a guy whose daughter came in to have brunch because he worked brunch all the time, and it's like I think it was her birthday, and she had like pancakes with our fresh berries that always came from like a farm, and she looked at her dad and was like, "Papa, this doesn't taste like the berries at grandma's house." And it's because like it was the first time she had a strawberry that tastes like something
Yeah.
and not,
We've had some of those experiences at a couple different locations, and with organizations that we help support, where some like community members, like some youth, some kids came to like the North Lawndale community garden, they're like, what is that? I want to eat that. And it's like a fresh tomato that's like grown on the community garden.
the
They're
best
like,
kind.
You have to like force them to eat it and try it, but then they like it. And you know, those are like such special moments that like that's what needs to be happening. Like we need to start investing in our youth's food education so that they can learn more about better practices, better sustainability practices, learn more about, you know, their ancestral roots regardless of where they're from, to understand like food in a different layer than how it's presented to us now as like this thing that we need to consume because we need energy, and that's that. And like, you know, having people question the things that they have access to eat. Like, why are there only McDonald's over here? Like, why is there a Popeyes, a McDonald's, a Burger King, and a Wendy's right here? But there's nothing else. There aren't any other options. That's something that's like so painful to watch, because we know what areas they're in. They're the same areas you just talked about. They're the areas that have been redlined, that have been disinvested in, that have been forgotten about. It feels like parts of our city have been forgotten about, and that's like the most painful thing to watch. And to your point earlier about like people not even, you know, going to that part of the city or whatnot, we always like to give the example, like, start from the furthest point east on Lake Street and just take Lake Street all the way until you hit Oak Park, and you'll see all of that. You'll go through downtown, you'll go through the West Loop, you'll go through Westtown, and then you'll start to see a difference.
I love that you just mentioned Lake Street specifically.
that's our street.
That's our street. You go down, like, down it, and it's painful. Like,
I have this was forever ago. It seems like one of my first clients for Bico was Garfield Produce, which is an urban farm, and they at the time partnered with a wonderful nonprofit that is escaping me at the moment. However, that partnership allowed them to teach a tangible trade at their establishment. And, you know, the nonprofit was Breakthrough Ministries. There we go. Yes, they partnered with Breakthrough Ministries, which is ran by our Laura Sutter. They are amazing. And yes, they are amazing. And
there was vigorous hand gestures.
Yes, I don't know if you could like feel it, but like
we're in.
Yeah, we're in
like
it.
them.
Yeah, and so Breakthrough Ministries was assisting in the prison pipeline. So once you left prison, it was a community adjustment center, and jobs were provided through Garfield Produce. And a lot of these individuals that worked at Garfield Produce, blown away by fresh produce. I mean, and it didn't matter the age. And in Garfield Park, which, I mean...
On Lake Street.
On Lake Street, you know, for the most part, people are like, oh yeah, the conservatory.
Yeah.
But do you look around to where the conservatory is?
No.
I mean, what?
That was like, I think going to Garfield Park Conservatory was one of the first places that I went to in Chicago that really taught me about the disenfranchisement that's within the city. Because like, I moved here from Vermont, in case we all forgot, and I've lived in Rogers Park like the entire 8 years that I've been here. And it wasn't until like 5 years into living into Chicago that I started like going places and seeing new things, because I always worked in fine dining, which is always downtown. So it's just like on the red line for 5 years.
And it seems super progressive. If fine dining is not downtown, that's another thing.
So it's like...
It's just like you can go into a different neighborhood and get elevated cuisine, and it's just like, oh, how crazy.
Exactly.
It's just like...
And like
but that's a whole different conversation. I'm just like, okay, y'all.
I went to Garfield Park Conservatory. It's like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful place. And then as soon as you walk outside, I'm like, but like, the people that live in this area don't even access this free thing
Yeah.
that's
Right.
in the community. And
Right.
I think that also goes to show the level of accessibility people feel that they have in their own communities, which is like not something that we like to think about in real time very often.
Yeah.
But
This is reminding me of like we're talking about like hardships and like, or not hardships, but hard things that we've seen,
Yeah, challenges.
challenges in the GRC world, and that's like a perfect example of, we've had multiple conversations of community members talking to us because they've been in this community, in their neighborhood for 20, 30, 40 plus years, and they would say things like, I remember when this neighborhood had, you know, a skating rink, when we had everything here and we didn't need to like leave to go do anything, because like
It was
this
all
was
here.
the hub, it was all here.
Yeah.
And now we don't, and now we're, you know, now I'm here talking to you at this free market, like grabbing some things that I need, when this used to be a store, you know.
Yeah.
Like when everything was here. And like that's one of those, that's something that like weighs heavy, because it's a reflection on the disenfranchisement, the lack of awareness of the city, but also the lack of awareness of the community members, because they are challenged with just trying to survive that day, that
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to Garfield Park Conservatory. Are you kidding me?
exactly.
Like, why would I do that? Like, it doesn't, and it's like, you can't hate on that.
Yeah.
No.
The point is to like try and understand why they're even at that point, versus it being like, well, why are they, you know, why isn't this person taking advantage of this? It's like, because you
you don't
shouldn't
have
be even
time,
asking
right?
that question.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
Yeah.
And why does
Yeah.
this person feel like they don't have they don't have access to joy? Like that's the other thing, because I think like yes, this is in their backyard, but like why do they feel like they don't deserve to go in there, or
Because
they
ain't
don't
nobody got
need to
time
go
for
in
that
there, right?
when you're trying to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people understand that. And
Yeah.
it's so easy for someone to not understand those scenarios and walk into a neighborhood and be like, but if they wanted to go to the conservatory, it's right there.
Oh man, my
You know,
worst.
like-
I
Yeah.
hate that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have the power to do anything. It's like, I mean, I don't
I
don't disagree with that, but like,
Yeah.
let's talk about it in reality.
Who has the power to do what?
Yeah.
Anything.
That's
Right.
what it is.
Right. So when I was living in New York, I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I'm just like, you know, just hang out all the time, school, all that. And one day I was in Harlem. I was meeting a friend of mine who
I've been
was
there.
attending. What's up?
I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Harlem's dope.
lovely. It's
Yeah.
it's a lovely spot, you know. Was meeting a friend of mine who was going to Columbia University, and we're walking around, and you can just feel the separation from Columbia University, which is an Ivy League school, to just Harlem.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to understand that it's not just in the realm of food distribution, it is how communities are seen
Yeah.
as well. Because it's like, we're going to have this whole beautiful campus, but then 2 blocks, it's like,
I mean, look at
What?
the University of Chicago.
Yeah.
that was going to be my
Yep.
next example.
Like we have
Exactly.
those all, you know, they're everywhere. Of like, let's pump millions of dollars into this, which, you know, I love the campus. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I want to live in Hyde Park too, but do you want to live in Hyde Park, and are you going to acknowledge that, you know, 2 blocks in the other way, that's someone else's reality? I think it's so easy for people to turn an eye and be like, well, there's a separation of a park and I don't need to understand what's happening on that side. Like,
Because it doesn't affect
because
you.
it doesn't affect me.
And
I live over here.
Yeah. And I think like the other part of that conversation too is when people start bringing businesses into these areas, it's like, well, how many storefronts before I can no longer afford to live here? As soon as like the resources come to you, then it's like, but can I be here to enjoy it? Because it pushes out those who have been there the whole time for people who want to make it better, air quotation marks. But in reality, they're not really changing the problem. They're just preparing to move it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
That's hard.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if this is common knowledge, but an ex of mine, I'm going to be very delicate as I explain this. An ex of mine worked for the university that you had mentioned earlier, and there was an entire initiative that, you know, they wanted to heighten the profile of that university, but they realized that they also needed to do that culturally. So therefore, they got a whole bunch of money to appeal to certain chefs to go ahead and install concepts in Hyde Park. So therefore, there are other things that are going on that isn't focused in the community that they're residing in, but optically makes them look
Right.
a certain way.
Yep.
And again, I am progressing extremely delicately on this, but if you do your research, it is there. You just have to trace the money and also pay attention to what chefs have concepts out there, whether they're functioning or they're shuttered, and that's going to give you everything that you need to know.
Yep. I mean,
Detective work
yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all around us, right?
Yeah.
It's all around us, and it's a matter of just taking the time to try and figure out what is happening around us and how we can change, where you align and how you can change that.
Right. And I think that's also why such a core part of Grocery Run Club is for us to partner with organizations versus us starting from the ground up. Like, we, even as Chicago kids, know that we don't know what's going on block to block in all 77 neighborhoods of the city. And we want to make sure that we're aligning with people that have done that work in their neighborhood that can tell us, like, what's going on in their community for us to just be able to resource them. So, like, an example that I love using is the Gage Park Latinx Council based in Gage Park. Like, there has not been...
Where is Gage Park, just for people that do not know?
Gage Park is on the southwest side of the city, close to Archer Heights.
Okay.
So, like, the Gage Park Latinx Council, for reference, is on 51st and California.
Okay.
It is not an area that is particularly accessible by transit. There's not really a train line that's extremely close. Over this pandemic, it was the zip code with the highest positivity rate.
Wow.
It is about 95% Latino, a huge undocumented population. They
Lots
have
of hospitality workers.
lots of hospitality workers, and the Gage Park Latinx Council is one of the only community resources in that neighborhood. They predominantly focus on allowing first generation students to have resources to be able to complete their education. They provide a lot of arts programming. Like, they're incredible. Over the pandemic, they pivoted to do a food distribution because there's not a single food pantry in Gage Park.
Yeah.
And so for Gage Park residents who were experiencing food insecurity, there was no option. They could go to another neighborhood to potentially get food from an alternate food pantry, but they check your zip code. So, like, if you pull up to get food and then they tell you, like, you don't live in the zip code, we can't service you.
Which is crazy. We learned about that during all of this, where I was
Yeah.
like,
Never
wait,
knew
hold
that.
up. You
What do you-
can't
Never
go
knew
to a
that.
food pantry
Some
if
food
you need
pantries
food?
are extremely strict about who they service, because they're like, these resources are for my community.
They're
And so-
within the network of national and state and city guidelines that are all work within a system, which is a system that is needed right now, and which is a system that does impact community members in a very positive way, but has restrictions like these that don't make any sense.
Right.
They make zero sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Gage Park Latinx Council essentially
Wild.
pivoted to do food
Wild.
distribution, and we've been able to support them in those initiatives. But they do so much amazing work that, like, there's no one else that could be bringing these resources to them. They just set up a COVID vaccination center in their neighborhood to get people vaccinated. But I say all those things about them because those are not things that we would be able to access about the Gage Park community if it wasn't for them. And we're able to access, this Cliff Notes version of it for us to be able to share what's going on in Gage Park, for us to be able to say, what do you need? And they know exactly what their needs are
Yeah.
because they know their community versus people who, back to your point of people who want to get involved. It's like, this is the long game. Like, you're going to be doing this information seeking and, getting your resources for a long time. It's not as simple as being like, well, I went to this neighborhood. This is what they needed. I dropped it off and now I'm good. Like that. This is not that.
We've been lucky enough to do that with a lot of community members. Like, shout out to Altspace. They're based out of Austin.
Dope.
John grew up in Austin. Dion's
Chicago Dream, based
our
in
boy
Inglewood.
Dion, he grew up down the block from where his community fridge is. Like,
and where his hopefully community center will be.
Like, the
soon.
homies on the block know him
Yeah.
on a first name basis. Now they know us on a first name basis, and
That's
like
awesome.
it's
Amazing.
and it's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And every time we pull up to Inglewood, we just laugh because it's like, you hear the news reports of like how scared you should be when you go to Inglewood. And
We've
it's
had
like,
people
we're
ask
pulling
us like,
up,
"Do you feel weird going to Inglewood?" And
Yeah,
we're like,
it's
"What
like,
do you? What?
Are
No.
they people?
My girl
Yes.
Boyza has a farm in Inglewood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is going to be on another episode. But anyway,
Yeah.
Inglewood is great.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's also just interesting, there's a lot of resources in Inglewood that like don't even get enough credit for what's going on. So when you hear of all of the negative news, it's like, okay, yes, there's a lot happening all over our city, but there's so much joy and good stuff happening in Inglewood that we don't hear about.
Absolutely.
Because it's so much easier to paint the picture that Inglewood's this awful, terrible, scary place that you probably shouldn't go to. And that it's so sad to know that these narratives exist. And that's something that I think through the information that we share through Grocery Run Club, we're always trying to change that narrative of like what your perception is about a neighborhood, or just get a better understanding of like, why are we here in this? Why does this neighborhood look like this? To your point of like sharing about redlining, like there's a lot of people that don't know that that's why some of these neighborhoods are set up that way.
Exactly.
There's so many people that don't know that there's a lack of access to capital. So when you're talking about opening businesses in these barren neighborhoods and you're like, why hasn't anyone opened anything here? Oh, let me tell you. Exactly.
Because it is connected. It's there's a very specific, clear connection to redlining and to what all the other discrepancies that those communities have been affected are a result of, right?
It's a warm one, yes. I would agree.
Oh, I gotta hurry.
Let me tell you. Okay, so I'm just going to take a moment really quickly to express to everyone my love affair with mulled wine.
Oh yes.
And Ashley Christine has made it into a spirit-free option, which has raised
Still
my
has some
spirits.
soul to it. So
Oh,
there you go. There
oh
you
my
go.
God. Can you just say that one more time?
Still has some soul to it.
You damn right. Thanks, Ryan.
Yes.
But I just want to go ahead and take a moment to get everyone to like give it a good sniff. Take a sip.
It's so toasty.
This is like warm.
And remember that y'all are changing so many lives with everything that you do, and it should feel as warm as that sip you just took.
Well done.
Nice. That's actually gonna stick with me forever.
That's the sound of my people. Aw. Oh, I hope so. Every time you take a sip of mulled wine. Sorry.
That it brings you back there.
But like, it is really upsetting when we know what things we need to do to make the change happen, but everything infrastructurally that has been set up does not allow for us to make these like very, what seems like easy to make decisions, like forever hard.
Right.
And so going back to like what you were saying about like working with community leaders within communities, a thing that I try to remind people that I work with or have like entered into whatever restaurant I've been working in, I'm like, listen, this is not a Columbus situation where because you came from somewhere else and this is how you did it there and that was right, that's how you do it here. And I think that it's really hard for people outside of communities to think that way coming into new communities.
Nice.
And I'm very grateful that y'all were like already consciously making that decision to like see what the people there need, because they've obviously been doing this longer than you have. So
Right.
like,
Thank you.
thanks
Thank you
for
for
being
saying
like
that.
Yeah.
decent human beings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're trying. I
Yeah.
think it really
Instead of
is.
walking in there, but like, this is how it's got to go.
Yo, so whack, right?
And that's what a lot of
Yeah.
people do. Like, I know better, and clearly you haven't figured this out. So it's just like there's so many layers. There's so many levels to understanding the realities of everyone's individual lives, let alone the collective life of a neighborhood, and how it changes block by block, and all of those nuances that like you literally can't figure out being the outsider walking in. And
Yeah.
it takes so much more time than we all have to be able to create change. So like, why not look to these people who are doing the work every day to better their communities and ask them what they need? Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. We talk about this all the time. Like, do not like look at what's going on, see how you can support people, and go from there. People will tell you what they need instead of you trying to create a bunch of different systems of what you think might work. Just ask people what they need.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like dignity, right? And showing up correctly, showing up respectfully, showing up how you would want to show up. What we were just talking about? How like the best part of like this idea of charity is when both people are there trying to do something for one another. It's like, how do you do that? It's by communicating. It's by understanding. It's by putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yeah.
It's by knowing what culturally affirming things are in life.
say that.
Like,
And respecting what they're expressing to you.
Yes.
As opposed to just, hearing rather than listening.
yeah. And giving people chances, right?
Yeah.
Like also like giving one another chances. Like, hey, maybe if you do mess up, like try again. Keep on
Because
trying.
we're gonna mess up in this work. Like,
Exactly. And I think that people think that when things aren't perfect, that, like you said, you have to reinvent the entire wheel. But like, you don't have to.
You don't have to. What part of the solution, right? Like the pieces to the puzzle are there. We just need people to start picking up those pieces and putting them
Together.
Together.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, it's hella
lemon.
easy, yo.
Just do it.
Just do it. Shout out to Nike for funding our next year. No,
No pressure, no pressure.
no pressure.
So put it out in the universe.
I know.
That's fine.
Manifestation, right?
Receive.
Manifestation.
Yeah.
Just like, just a couple dollars out of the
Yeah,
to spend.
I don't need all the budget. Just give us a little bit.
I know y'all are listening.
Well, now you are.
Exactly. Because we're everywhere. So,
That makes me panic when I think about it too much.
okay.
Like when I think about the fact that people are like going to listen to this in the future. It makes me very excited for y'all, but like I don't know if you've listened to any of us rambling, but it's just us rambling.
We love the ramble.
And
Didn't we go over this? I'm a Libra. I love to ramble.
true. Okay. Well, there we go.
I mean, it sounds like we're in perfect company. So, honestly. I mean, this is obviously a part of a longer conversation, a deeper discussion. But I do want to thank you for coming and, really being as candid as you were.
Also, I just want everyone to realize that like this is the youth of America doing this.
So pay attention.
So
We're still kind of young, I guess.
yeah,
Lucy's young.
You're as young as you feel.
exactly.
There you go. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I
you're
like
as
that.
young. You're as young as you feel, and I feel really like I'm just kind of in awe right now.
For real.
Because I have so much respect for you both, and it's just I like.
You made this whole thing happen in a panini.
Yeah,
So-
and a whole ass patriotics. Exactly.
So thank you for
Yeah.
like
Because
putting in
it's
that
work
work.
like this that helps just, shrink even just a little the inequity across not only this industry but multiple industries, but then also it brings a bit of dignity and identity back to the people.
Making humans
Thank
feel
you.
like humans.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
the work.
And
Yeah.
like
And
hopefully
thank you.
making it easier for the next generation to like not think about getting help as a handout or charity.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you need help, you shouldn't be ashamed to ask for it.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And I think that's a shame that like we sort of have like embodied because of our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's now on us to make sure that the next generation doesn't feel that way
Right.
when going to get what they need.
100%.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your kind words.
Yeah.
That's
Thank
really
y'all.
sweet.
Y'all
Yeah.
are great.
I think it just feels like this was something we were called to do and we found our avenue. And I think that everyone can find their lane of what it is that they're called to do to help their neighbor. Cause that's really what we're trying to do. And I think, you know, a lot of people wait for that moment of just like, I'm going to be the hero of this and I'm going to create this big thing. And it's not that. Like,
Right.
you have to start somewhere.
yeah.
And also that idea is selfish.
It
Yeah.
is.
It's
You
not the
know?
point, right?
Yeah,
This
it's
is
this is not the point at all.
Mm-hmm.
And what are in closing, what are the next steps? How can we, how can our audience find y'all?
Y'all can find us at Grocery Run Club. That's our Instagram, and then groceryrun.club.com is our website. There's some more information on our website. We're on IG a decent amount. We're trying to get a little bit better, but it's all about intentionality. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you don't catch us on there that much, it's because we're doing some work and working on some things.
Yeah.
Or
but-
lugging a bunch of groceries in my car down
Yes.
somewhere. Like that's also the part that I feel like we don't show because it's and it's like, the things we do post on Instagram are like cute and fun and there's a cute song behind it.
We
But like
love authentic content.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
let me post my authentic content tomorrow when I'm like throwing bags into my car of food. Like it's
We'll repost it and give it a like.
Yes.
I'll send it your way.
those are the
Please
two main outlets that we're on. And I don't know, like for the rest of the year, we got some things planned. We got community development, education, immediate impact. We're really trying to focus and filter these ideas that we have between these three slots so that we can be as impactful as possible, be there long term for our people and for our communities versus it just being like, a pop-up or like an in and out kind of situation.
Right.
We're excited for what's to come.
We're excited about this community garden project that
Yes.
we're working on.
Dope.
I won't give you guys the whole thing because there's so many layers, but essentially like the community garden that we shared with you guys of like how we essentially started this project. We want to take it to the next level of like really showing these community members that we've been working with of like, we're here, we're not going anywhere. And we want to make sure that we're adding that extra layer. So we're working with a couple of friends of ours to really ramp up that plot of land to make it more fruitful, to make it a place where the youth can really come in and learn about food and just for them to know that you're seen and you're validated and you can come here and see this green space that, before was this empty plot of land of this burned apartment complex, and we deserve those spaces. You deserve those spaces. And so I'm really excited about that garden.
Humanizing the work, adding like some storytelling behind it so that the community has something to talk about. We can share more stories and whatnot. So yeah, that's going to be dope. I mean, yeah, we're excited for what's to come. And we could only do it
With
because of
everyone's help.
because of our community, because of our network. We always talk about how like we're out here repping everyone else who's like supporting us, right? It's just a reflection of everyone who is supporting us. That is what GRC is.
Awesome. And well, I can say specifically that Terms of Service will begin supporting your work as much as we can.
Oh, 100%.
You're
As
supporting by
done it as
sharing the
well.
word.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah, we're already in community, so thank
Yeah.
y'all so much.
Thank
Thank you for what you do. Thank
Yeah.
you for supporting this, for using your platform and whatnot. So
Thank you.
Eh,
Well,
I'm sad because I know it's almost over.
Yeah. Any closing words, Nariba?
I just want to like really point out that things you already know, like everything you're doing is amazing, and your labor will not go unnoticed because it has already like blasted through a lot of this stigmas you saw when you entered into these communities, just based on our conversation that we've had today. And I just am always surprised when people can be good and full of intentions, and it's not about like clout in the long run. So thank you so much for like being normal people
work,
doing
but,
this shit, because
thank you.
no one else wants to do it, even though everyone should.
Yes.
Everyone should.
Correct.
And that's what we're moving towards, getting people to realize that they can do these things, and it doesn't mean like you have to change your whole life in order to do it. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Yep.
Meh.
Yeah. Well,
I guess I am Nariba Shepherd, and you can find me on Instagram at Rebaroo. And you know, jobless or jobless, for real though.
Justin Arnett Graham. Once again, you can find me at What's Beco, WHATSBECO, and
shout out to our homies.
Shout out to Grocery Run Club all the time, but also shout out to Blind Barber. Thank you. Also for this beautiful set design.
Thank you.
Over at Plants Delivered Chicago.
Burr, burr, burr.
Just Garnet, Travis for documentation, Ashley for beverage design. I mean, just the list goes on. And
for Max,
we did not forget you.
Always
our
and forever.
Wonderful producer, Max.
Out here in these streets, keeping us on task.
Yes, and on that note, peace.
Bye.